Welcome to the next video in the Great Motorcycle Adventure. The last one, as it ended, we were coming into Crookwell, and we're coming into Crookwell again. Crookwell is a town of about 3,000 or 4,000 people. At this intersection, if you turn left, you'll go back towards Goulburn. We're turning right, as you can clearly see, and about a kilometre down the road here, we're going to turn left and go on the Grabben Gullen road. So getting back to Crookwell, it's a town of about 3,000 or 4,000 people. As I mentioned in the last video, there is a public primary school and a Catholic primary school and a high school. There are a couple of pubs, I think one at either end of town. There are cafes and specialty shops, things like that. There's a service club, which I think is an RSL and services club. So it's a small-ish community, but probably of all the towns in this loop, it's the next biggest town to Goulburn. As you can see, just turning left here now and going on to the Grabben Gullen road. It's a town that was established in the 1820s, I believe, as part of a pastoral community, pastoral in the sense of farming and so on. And Crookwell is, again, part of the fine wool growing region of southern New South Wales, the southern tablelands of New South Wales. And so the town sort of exists to service the farming community and the farms around it. Between Goulburn and Crookwell, closer to Crookwell than Goulburn, but between Goulburn and Crookwell there is also a wind farm. And one of my other videos on my other channel, Goulburn, one of my other playlists about Goulburn, talks about the wind farm and the electricity it generates and size, how many turbines there are and that sort of thing. So if you're interested, look for the Goulburn playlist and look for the one about the wind farm. In fact, I think there might even be two of them about the wind farm, and it'll tell you a little bit more about it. Now, we're just, as I said, gone here on the Grabben Gullen road, and shortly we'll come to a sign that'll tell us that Grabben Gullen is about 11, just passing it now. Grabben Gullen is about 11 kilometres, and Gunning, which is the next town after that, is about 44 kilometres away. In the last video, I talked a bit about the kinds of bikes that I've owned and ridden and so on, and gave you a bit of information about those. And this time I'd like to talk a little bit while we're watching the countryside and enjoying the countryside about other things to do with bikes and bikes on the road. I'm sure that every motorcyclist watching these videos has had at one stage in their riding career at least one near miss. And every motorcyclist, I'm sure, has got horror stories about almost being collected by cars and things like that. Now, in a previous video, I talked about motorcycle visibility and actually being able to see the bike itself, and the fashion now for blacked out bikes and how that makes it difficult for the bikes to be seen. The riders who like to wear lots of black gear, that makes them hard to see. But even allowing for all of that and the motorcyclists doing their very best to make themselves visible, like I do, and with a big bike, there are still times when you have these strange interactions, I say, with drivers in cars. And I'm almost certain that if you were to stop a car driver and ask them about what happened, the first words that would come out of their mouth was, "Oops, I didn't see you." So this is a bit of a talk, I guess, for the blokes or people who drive cars, for them to be more aware of motorcyclists and to think about motorcycling and motorcyclists. When I was working, I used to drive 200 kilometres in a round trip each day, and most of that was on dual carriageway highway. So getting to and from work wasn't a drama, but leaving town and going into the town where I worked and the same thing in the afternoon presented a bit of a problem. It presented a problem because if you came to an intersection and a car saw you, or a car was approaching at the same time or coming out of a driveway or something like that, I get the feeling that many car drivers think, well, he's on a bike and the bike's fairly light and he'll be able to stop without any trouble. They don't seem to realise that in my case, the bike is a 400 kilogram bike, but even if it's not a 400 kilogram bike, which is a much lighter one, car drivers often are not aware that you're trying to work your way down through the gears. So you're working the clutch and you're working your way down through the gears and you're working the front and back brakes. And as the bike gets slower and slower, its tendency to be, you begin to feel the weight more than you would when it's going at 100 kilometres an hour. And when the bike stops, the first thing it wants to do is fall over. So you're fighting to keep it upright while all that's happening. for some drivers, I don't think they're aware of that, or they don't realise that. I'm not saying they deliberately set out to cause a problem, but I'm saying sometimes when they just go through a roundabout when you're already on there, or they come out of a driveway thinking, well, the bike will be able to stop quickly, or something like that. You just need for car drivers to be thinking, right, there's a motorcyclist approaching. It's an engine vehicle. It's not like a push bike where you can just squeeze the handlebar brake and it'll stop. Travelling at 100 kilometres an hour or whatever the speed is it's travelling at, and it's going to take a distance to stop. The rider is trying to manoeuvre it, keep it upright, and avoid any accidents to other vehicles, but also avoid having to lay the bike down and have himself, or herself for that matter, on the tarmac. Now, the other thing that I think is worth talking about is when you're riding on the road and there are cars either in front of or behind you. If you are behind a vehicle, then I'm sure in most of the motorcycle training that people go to, they talk about making sure that you're in the field of vision. That's being somewhere so that the driver of the car can see you in the rear vision mirror or the side mirrors. One thing I think that's important there is that you don't stay in the same line or in the same position in the lane all the time. Sometimes you move a little bit to the right or a little bit towards the centre line, but not too close to the centre line. The reason you do that is because what happens is the driver of the car looks in the rear vision mirror, sees the motorcyclist, continues driving, looks again, sees the motorcyclist, and after a while you become part of the scenery. Then he or she kind of forgets about you. So if you start moving your position and you're in a different position in his rear or their rear vision mirror, that tends to sort of wake them up a little bit and think, oh, the motorcyclist is still there. And that tends to make them pay a bit more attention to the fact that you are behind them. They don't stop suddenly without warning or just jam their foot on the brake unnecessarily. And the same applies if you are in front of another vehicle. There's a tendency for car drivers to get too close to each other and to tailgate, as we well know. And that also happens sometimes with motorcyclists. They get too close to you and you feel a bit uncomfortable. That's because they see you in the windshield and they're driving along, and they see you in the windshield and they're driving along, and they see you in the windshield. And as I said before, you become part of the scenery and they forget you're there and get closer and closer to you. So if you kind of move about in the lane a little bit, not crazily, but if you just move about in the lane a little bit every now and again, it kind of wakes them up and goes, oh, there's a motorcyclist in front of me. And so it means they've got to pay a bit more attention to you. Over the years, car designers have done lots and lots of things to try and keep drivers' attention focused on the road. So if you think about the things that might have distracted them, like fiddling with the radio and tuning into a new station or turning up the volume on the favourite song or whatever, all of those controls are now on the steering wheel, along with other things that used to be on the dashboard. But there's no accounting for the person who's got a phone in their hand or the person who's trying to talk on the phone and looking at the phone, as we seem to need to do while they're driving the car. So those things need to be all given some thought to. Well, as I said earlier, we're on the Grabben Gullen. It's actually, I guess, the Crookwell to Gunning Road. And the next settlement we're going to come to is Grabben Gullen, which is a little bit away just yet. But as again, I've talked about the state of the roads I've been riding on, and this road is well maintained in some places with markings down the centre and posts on the guideposts on the side of the road. Some cases there are lines on the side of the road as well. Other cases, other parts, not so much. I guess again that depends on whether it's in the road is in the area of a local council or is in an area that's responsible, the state government is responsible for, and it provides the councils with grants to do the maintenance and do the work they require. You can see at this point where there's a centre line and there are some white posts on guideposts on the side, but there are no lines on the edge of the road. Well, this land along here is agricultural land, mainly wool farming, and also some beef cattle. And I think at one stage I even saw some alpacas in the paddock. Now, we're coming up to Grabben Gullen shortly. And if you thought you blinked and you missed Lagan and had to rewind the video and see it, then be careful not to do the same here, because Grabben Gullen is in fact even smaller than Lagan. There are a few houses here. There's a pub which is called the Albion Hotel. They do meals and they seem to be open all the time. This is the first time I've gone past. There have been no cars parked out the front of it. Every other time I've gone on this road, there have been cars or motorcycles outside the pub. So as I said, there's a few houses, there's a pub, there's a community hall. I don't think there's a school in Grabben Gullen any longer. And that's about it. I guess the kids who live here probably go into Crookwell, since it's only 11 k's to Crookwell. We would have just gone past the pub then, and we're just going past the community hall now. And you've seen what there is to see at Grabben Gullen. That road on the right there will take you back to Goulburn. It's called Range Road, and it's about 40 odd kilometres back to Goulburn if you go that way. Probably noticed not many cars in either. No cars have passed me. There have been only a few cars coming in the opposite direction. It was a weekday afternoon, so not a lot of traffic on this road. Just gone past a sign that says stock crossing, and whenever the stock are crossing, the lights flash. Solar-powered sign. There's a panel above the sign. And again, that's one of those things that you need to be aware of when you're riding on country roads. It could well be some stock cattle or sheep crossing the road at any given point. And it's part of that riding the conditions I might have talked about in one of the other videos. And if you were approaching Grabben Gullen from the other end, you would go past another sign just about here somewhere reminding you of the stock crossing. So there's a fairly long zone here. I don't want to guess how long it is in terms of metres or hundreds of metres or whatever, but a fairly long zone in which stock crossing the road from one paddock to another. And when I talked about driving to the conditions, I mean, you're on a country road, the speed limit might say 100, but that doesn't necessarily mean you should do 100 all the time. And when you see a sign like that, it's probably advisable to slow down a little bit, even if there is no stock crossing. When you come up the top of this rise here, um, the countryside opens out in some beautiful wide plains, and the view, although you're probably not seeing it as well as I did on the bike, over the countryside out towards Gunning into the east is quite spectacular. Mostly on this road I would have been riding with the cruise control on, only disengaging the cruise control every now and again to change down to get up a bit of a rise or get up a bit of a slope, and probably somewhere between 90 and 100 kilometres an hour. I'm in no great hurry to go anywhere, and I'm in no great hurry to set speed records or whatever. I'm just out to enjoy the ride. So how long it takes me to get where I'm going is not that important. How fast I go is not that important. Cruise control, as I said, is to take your hand off the throttle every now and again, give your wrist a bit of a rest, but also, even though I didn't encounter any of the highway patrol on this road, but also to make sure you don't ever have that issue. And of course, it's very helpful with fuel economy. We're coming to the end of the video now, so again I'll say thank you to all those who've been watching, and promise that the next video is coming shortly, and I hope in the next video we will make it into Gunning, and I'll be able to talk a bit about the town of Gunning. Thank you for everyone watching. Stay tuned for the next video. I'll catch you next time.